This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
It's the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm Guy Clarke, and welcome along as the Reds continue their preparation at the start of the week in which the 2020-21 campaign officially gets underway. Coming up, we'll be talking transfers, pre-season plans, and the Champions League curtain coming down. And to bring you their insight and opinion, I'm glad to say I have three fine journalists alongside me. Ian Doyle, our chief Liverpool writer, after 3 weeks off, is back. Doyle, I suppose this pod for you is your own bleep test to see how you get underway before the new season starts.
Well, I did say a few words that would have to be bleeped out when I got told how to do it, so yeah.
Matt Addison also with us after a shorter break. Matt, how are you keeping? Nice and refreshed?
Yeah, just the week off for me, so the lactate test shouldn't be too much of a problem and that sort of thing. But yeah, very happy to be back, and as soon as I'm back, the Community Shield, the new season, we all go again, don't we?
Happy to be back. Come on, don't lie.
Maybe the years of ground Doyley down, who's to say. Also alongside us, Caoimhe O'Neill, who kept the wheels turning whilst we were all away. Caoimhe, how are you keeping?
Yeah, I never left. I'm good, thanks, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't seem to get the memo that went round about all of us booking the same week off at once. But anyway, we'll start with the Champions League. Of course, the final taking place last night, and Bayern Munich tying with Liverpool then for 6 Champions Leagues. Doyley, and well, there's a couple of players. Philippe Coutinho, we've got, I think, a new record there set for his name on a Blood Red pod, and Thiago Alcantara, with Liverpool fans taking plenty of interest in those two.
Yeah, I wonder why. Who do you want to do first? Coutinho?
Yeah, we can do.
Well, let's face it, his career's probably not gone the way he would have expected after he left Liverpool, but what is it? He's won the Spanish League twice, the Spanish Cup, the German League, the German Cup, and now he's won the Champions League. And of course, he scored the 2 goals, didn't he, against Barcelona earlier in the pretend tournament that they've had at the end of the season. So it's worked out quite well for him in that sense. A little bit like Fernando Torres, isn't it? Because he went to Chelsea. He was never as good a player as he was with Liverpool, but he ended up winning absolutely everything there. So, you can't knock him for that. Whenever they say show us your medals, he'll be able to do that. And, fair play to him. And you saw the reaction from the Liverpool, former Liverpool teammates. They were all made up for him, probably because they all like, yeah, we won it last year kind of thing. So, they do it from that position of strength. In terms of Thiago, has he signed yet? In terms of Thiago, okay, let's put it this way. He quite clearly is going to leave Bayern Munich, or Bayern Munich, I should say. And it's quite obvious that Liverpool, so certainly Jurgen Klopp is a big fan of him. And to be honest, anybody with a brain would be quite interested in signing him. But for what price? We don't know. Do Liverpool need another midfielder at the moment? Probably not. Will end up that they might need another midfielder because another midfielder might leave. That might happen. That's why. All these are the variables that would have to be in place for Liverpool to actually make a move for him. I mean, people have been claiming that Liverpool have been in for him for quite some time, as we all know. Including there was the one that got me was when they were saying that Thiago had said his goodbyes to everybody at Bayern Munich, and this was at the end of the Bundesliga season, although they were still in the Champions League. And what's he been doing every time they play a game? Does he go at the end and say, right, it might be the next game, see ya, that kind of thing. But it looks like he's finished this time. So I know there's a certain amount of Liverpool fans who are absolutely obsessed with him joining because there hasn't been very much other transfer news, although I believe Liverpool signed somebody when I was off, an unpronounceable name, yeah. Left back, I'm sure you've done him. It'd be interesting to see him play, by the way. But yeah, Thiago. I mean, could he end up at Liverpool? Wouldn't be surprised. Would I be surprised if he doesn't? No.
No, and Caoimhe, I suppose with that win for Bayern Munich, for some Reds fans, it's a look at the past in Coutinho and maybe the future in Thiago Alcantara. And a lot of people, as Tony said, getting very excited. I know you guys spoke about it on Friday, how there's sort of that hope that it is that excitement that's driving this maybe more than anything else.
Yeah, I think it's just one of them, isn't it? It was the same last summer with Nicolas Pepe, wasn't it? I think anyone whose name sort of crops up and then they put in performances like Thiago did last night, that pass was sensational, and he seems to almost run the game in a similar way to Wijnaldum, quite quietly, and you have to really watch him to realise how many of the strings he's pulling. He's an incredible player, and I think social media, in this age of social media, I think transfers are always going to be just crazier, aren't they? As soon as now, if you look at Thiago's posts, when he posted last night, I think he's posted this morning, pictures of him with the European Cup, and it's literally just underneath, just straight away, it's just Liverpool fans within seconds, just with, all funny pictures and him in a Liverpool kit and stuff like that. And I don't know if I'm a big fan of that kind of thing, because I feel like it's quite obsessive. If he signs for Liverpool, he does, but let's not get carried away, because he might not sign for Liverpool. But, obviously fans are entitled to be excited about this kind of thing. That's what keeps us all going, doesn't it, over the summer? It's the transfer gossip and, who they might sign. And I think I mentioned on Friday about Luis Suarez as the type of player, if he come back to Liverpool, for me, I'd feel like Liverpool were nailed on for the Premier League just because of his hunger and determination. And watching Thiago last night, I did think, is he one of them signings who comes to Liverpool and you just think straight away, well, Liverpool are definitely going to, go back to back and win the title again? And I think he probably is. So, it is quite an interesting one, isn't it? It just seems to be kind of now ramping up again. Like it was weeks and weeks, wasn't it? But obviously now, he's won the Champions League. He's definitely leaving Bayern. So I think Liverpool fans are just waiting now, aren't they?
Yeah, is that the stage we're at with this, Matt? The Bayern season now has finally finished, given they've been in the Champions League, and with that all coming to an end now, we know the speculation and everything's going to intensify even more. I think former Liverpool midfielder Dietmar Hammann's been on radio saying that he basically thinks everything's done and it'll just be a case of agreeing a fee. A lot of people seeming to be jumping to many conclusions.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, we've seen it so many times every single day. We've talked about him. We've heard about him. There's been some sort of new angle or new line in this transfer story. And as you say, I think that's only going to get more and more and more. And well, certainly until Liverpool kick off the new season or something happens more significant with Thiago. But I suppose it does make sense that they would have to get the Champions League out of the way first. I mean, just in terms of the player, he is an unbelievable player. I think he got something like 89-90% pass success completion last night, which, for a Champions League final against a team as good as PSG, it sort of shows the quality that he is at. But for me, it all comes back to the fee. And I know we've talked about this before. Bayern Munich reportedly want 30 million euros for a player whose contract expires in 9 or 10 months' time. And it just doesn't make sense for Liverpool, in my opinion, to go and spend that sort of money on a player who is approaching 30 when you can get him for free potentially next summer. So look, that might change if, say, Gini Wijnaldum was to leave and Liverpool were to get 30 million euros, for example, for him. Potentially then you could sort of justify putting that money back in and getting Thiago as a replacement. But I think, as Doyle said, there's got to be one or two outgoings before Liverpool look to sign another midfielder, because they've already got Marco Grujic that we've seen over the weekend. They've already got other players in that position. They are well stocked in that area, and as much as he is a brilliant player, as much as Liverpool fans would like him, and we do know for a fact that Jurgen Klopp is a big fan of him as well from his time being in Germany. He's praised him hugely in the past. I just don't think financially the figures as they stand at this moment in time make too much sense. So look, the links are going to continue. If anything, they will get more and more and more. As we know, Thiago is going to be on the move this summer, but it wouldn't surprise me, actually, if he ended up somewhere like PSG rather than Liverpool, just because of those sums that are involved.
Yeah, Doyle, is that maybe where we're at also with, I suppose, the transfer window on a wider scale for Liverpool and many other clubs, the market, the way it is, that it will more than ever be that domino effect. If Gini Wijnaldum goes, maybe, say, Barcelona have been linked in the last few days, of course, with Koeman going in at the Nou Camp, that then all of a sudden a chain of events spirals, and that would be the way in which the market operates.
You got to bear in mind the transfer window's open until October the 5th, is it? So it's a long time to go. But as far as I'm concerned, I reckon this will be done inside 2 weeks in terms of where he's actually going to go, because Bayern will want to get it sorted. Wherever he's going to will want to bring him in. Obviously, I'd probably have a holiday or something after winning the Champions League. So I think it serves nobody's interest to let it linger for any longer than it already has, which it's only been lingering this long because Bayern have still been in the Champions League and the way that the season's been gone. I think otherwise, normally, he would have been done and dusted and gone to wherever he was going a couple of months ago. But we know that this year, this season, this summer's been a bit different to normal. I mean, with Liverpool, you're right. You forget how many players they've got. You forget because they've had so many players go out on loan. I mean, Grujic, I think he dropped off the radar for a lot of people, as Matt said, and he's done really well with Hertha Berlin last season. So he's somebody that Klopp want to have a look at. But the reality is, he's barely played a game for Liverpool in the past couple of years, and I'd be amazed if. And bear in mind, the last time he played, Liverpool were, just outgoing European champions, world champions, and Premier League champions. So the level's been ramped up quite a lot. So. Yeah, you would imagine if Liverpool can move on the likes of Grujic and possibly one or two others, whether they'd be tempted to make a move. But even then, 30 million euros for a player who's going to be 30 next year. I don't think the age thing that matters that much. It was interesting that what Keeper said about Suarez. I wouldn't take Suarez back at all. I actually think that he's gone. He's gone over the hill in the sense of his pace has gone, I think, a little bit. And while it'd be great just to bring on the last 20 minutes and just annoy everybody, but would he want to do that? I'm not sure. I think that one, that particular boat sailed. I don't think you can compare him to Thiago in terms of his age as well. I think, what is Suarez now, 34 or something? 32. He's at that age, that's, 4 or 5 years. That's a full contract for a player between him and Thiago. So I wouldn't be too bothered about Thiago's age in terms of if he signs, whether he'd be able to do anything, because you saw the way that he plays against PSG. He plays the game at his pace, and he's not averse to putting the boot in or, getting stuck in. So wouldn't have any problems with him adjusting to the English style of play, and he would be great for Liverpool. But as we've said, it's ultimately down to whether or not Liverpool think that it's a transfer that is financially viable for these, as has been said many times, unprecedented times.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose if you're talking about Suarez and bringing him on for the last 20 minutes to annoy people, I suppose you could fill that role, Doyle, at Anfield. You could run on, kick a few people, and run back off. But
I don't fancy eating them, though, to be fair. So
no, fair enough. Kiva, in terms of that, though, you've been running the blog throughout the day, and there is news from Barcelona. Now, on Friday, you did somewhat of a fire sale special from Barcelona. Who would you take at Liverpool? And it does seem as though Luis Suarez is maybe going to be getting sent on his way by Ronald Koeman.
Yeah, apparently he's had a meeting or a phone call today, so reports in Spain suggest, and basically Ronald Koeman said that he's the sort of first out the door. He's not got a future at Barcelona now, which you expect for a lot of players there, but I think this will be a blow in terms of him and Messi are pretty much best mates, aren't they? And I think it's going to be. We knew it was going to be interesting. We said that on Friday. I think it could be one of them where you think everyone's going to leave Barca because they're trying to change up, but then no one wants to buy these players for the price they want and stuff like that. So it might not turn out the way they want it. But yeah, basically apparently the new boss has come in and the first player he wants out is Suarez, which is, I think it sort of sets the tone, doesn't it? It's quite the sort of major statement to say, right, Luis Suarez no more, which because he's been incredible, hasn't he, since he joined Barcelona. I think he's scored, 250 goals? I might be wrong, but he's absolutely smashed it there. I think I just checked then. He's 33, so I still think he can do a job, Ian. And yeah, so it is quite interesting reading that today. And, I think a lot, when I posted it straight away, we got a lot more readers on the blog. People are interested in him. I think it'll always be the same for players like that until they retire. You saw that with Torres when he was sort of going back to Atletico Madrid. There was that little bit of hope that maybe he'd sign for Liverpool. But like Ian mentions there, they probably wouldn't be, they are a little bit past it now. So it probably wouldn't have worked out. But, you still kind of think he'd do a good job. Like Ian does annoying us, he would definitely, he'd come on the pitch, wouldn't he, and put in a few tackles and just hold up play, that kind of play. And I think, he'd be good just to sort of set the tone in training and stuff, and it'd just be another player with that, world-class sort of mentality. He's a ruthless player. And yeah, I think he would be good to come back to Liverpool. But there was sort of a bit of speculation he might be heading back to Ajax last week. So whether, he gets his homecoming, but it just might not be Anfield.
Is he out of contract? He is, isn't he?
I think I read he's got an option or something.
Oh, so they take the option, wouldn't they, and then sell him for money? That's probably
basically. Yeah. It was in Spanish and I translated it, and it never quite translated well. I tried to get a couple of lines on the blog in a good translation. You know, my Spanish isn't too good, so.
Well, Matt, we know which camp Kiva's in. We know which camp Doyle is in. What about yourself? Would you take Luis Suarez back at Anfield?
No, I don't think I would, to be honest. I do think he's slightly past it at this stage. He's obviously had a lot of good years with Barcelona, and I suppose this year has sort of been a fairly big drop-off for him. I can understand why they're looking to see the back of him, but I think there's other options that Liverpool have got. I think we're going to talk about Ryan Brewster at some point during the podcast. Obviously, Takumi Minamino was fairly impressive over the weekend as well, so I think Liverpool are fairly sort of well-stocked in terms of that at the moment. I think there's bigger priorities. Certainly, I'd be looking to sign a centre-back before I started to look at someone like Luis Suarez. So, yeah, there's plenty of other options for Liverpool, but he wouldn't be the first name on my list.
Are they selling Messi? Because I'd probably take him. He'd be a good option for the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might just about be a squad play. Yeah, that's fair enough to say, Doyle. Well, let's look then over the course of the weekend. Liverpool having their first pre-season fixture, beating Stuttgart 3-0 in torrential rain in Austria. Doyle, I think a lot of people very excited for this season, maybe for what Ryan Brewster can offer. He got the third goal in the game, and he comes back off a productive loan spell at Swansea City. Do you think he's got the qualities to add to the squad this season for Jurgen Klopp, or are we likely to see him head back out?
Well, first things first, I haven't seen the game, and I didn't even know he'd scored until just then. So that's a good start. But talking about Brewster generally, I think was it 11-22 he got at Swansea at the end of last season. I mean, I wrote a piece basically saying Liverpool were waiting to see. Klopp will have a look at him over these next couple of weeks. The reality is he's just played. They played one game and he's come on and he's scored. So he can't do much more than that. I think Liverpool are. I think it's a weird one because I can't imagine Liverpool wanting to go on loan to a Championship team. He's proven that he can do it there. I think if he's going to go anywhere, it would be a Premier League team. But then, will Liverpool look to because they don't they have options up front, but they haven't got anybody you describe as being an out-and-out striker, goal scorer. Somebody can run in, from a central area in behind the defence, and the old phrase "fox in the box," and that's what Brewster is, and that's what he can bring. Anybody who's seen him play, Matt's seen quite a lot for the academy. That's the kind of player he is. He can play out wide, but he's definitely a lot better down the middle. And with him, his age, what is he now? 20, I think. So he did miss. He missed 18 months basically of his development, and that's a massive deal. And so he's been playing catch up for about the past 12 months. And I think the last 6 months have been a massive step for him. I think Liverpool. I would not be surprised if he's come back to training and Liverpool have been impressed. This is just going off by what I would assume. Liverpool have been impressed by what he's done because he will have improved considerably playing competitive football for 6 months. And in the league, which I think everybody, accepts that the Championship is such a strange division that, if you are able to impress in that as a youngster, especially if you've dropped down a level from the Premier League and you're used to playing in that kind of environment, even if it's only on the, at Melwood on the training pitch, that you can do it there, then, your next step is to be playing in the Premier League. And I think Liverpool, certainly at the moment, he can't do much more than what he's been doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if, again, because the transfer window, even the loans, that's right, saying that the loans are actually extended. They don't have to make a decision on loans till more or less November. I think it's a couple of weeks after the October deadline, isn't it? So Liverpool have got loads of time to have a look at him. And they'll be playing. I think the fixtures list, I've been paying some attention. I think the fixture list is the League Cup played really early on, 1 week after the next. And I think that's going to be good for a lot of Liverpool's fringe players because they'll get a chance to play. They'll be playing in these games before the decision has to be made on whether they can go out on loan or they might get sold. So Liverpool could well be that, you get down towards the end of September and suddenly Liverpool's squad is quite big and that they might prune it then. But for now, Brewster's got a great chance just to carry on doing what he was doing in the second half of last season. That's scoring goals.
Yeah, Matt, I'll come to you on Brewster and even some of the other young attacking talents. Everyone gets excited to see attacking talents arrive, whether it be transfers or coming through the academy. And I suppose there's been a lot of talk about how this coming season could be a big season for Curtis Jones. Harvey Elliott's, of course, been round it as well. But Ryan Brewster coming back, he's in a different position, isn't he, having tasted regular first-team football for the second half of last season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wrote a piece about him a couple of weeks ago, which sort of pointed out that he was in that same England under-17 sort of youth group as the likes of Jadon Sancho, Callum Hudson-Odoi, players like that. And the only difference really between those players and Ryan Brewster is that he had more than 12 months out injured. He's missed all of that development. He's then had to come back. And, even after that 12 months out injured, he then had to get himself back match fit and go out. And, I think it's to his credit that he went out to Swansea and did as well as he did. 11 goals in half a season, having just gone there, having, only just been moved up into that senior setup is, really, really impressive. And I would be surprised if Liverpool didn't want to keep him around next season and were pushing to sort of move him out on loan. I think the only reason he would end up going out on loan next season would be if he sort of turned around and said, well, I'm not going to get the minutes at Liverpool. I want to be playing Premier League football week in, week out. And I'm sure there'll be sort of 5 or 6 Premier League clubs, probably mid-table to the bottom half, who would certainly take him. You think of someone, for example, like Crystal Palace. You could imagine him going there for a season and doing, fairly well and scoring a few goals. So I think ultimately, as Doyle said, Liverpool have got ages and ages to decide, what happens with Ryan Brewster next season. But I do think there's a good chance it will be pretty much down to him. I think for me at the moment, I wouldn't be against, if Divock Origi left, he could come in and play the minutes that he played last season. But at the same time, as I say, I think Ryan Brewster will certainly have a say in that. And if he really desperately wants to continue having had that taste at Swansea, I think there's a good chance Liverpool would let him do that.
Yeah, and aside from Brewster, Caoimhe, it does seem to be quite a big season this coming for 2 midfield players. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, of course, picking up a knee injury over the course of the first week out in Austria, and Naby Keita, who himself also got on the score sheet. They do seem to be in the similar position in terms of big things are expected for this coming season, but right now seem to be in different places, with one injured and one, of course, scoring against Stuttgart.
Yeah, it's obviously not what you want, is it, for Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, another injury. But this one, Klopp said it's similar to Henderson's injury, and hopefully, he'll be back in a few weeks. So he's definitely out for the Community Shield. He'll miss that against his former club Arsenal, which I'm sure would have been a good day even without fans for him. But yeah, so that's disappointing, and it kind of hinders the progress he was making towards the end of last season and last season, to be honest, because he scored quite a lot of goals, some of them spectacular as ever, what you expect from him. Some games he probably didn't do as well as he should have, or sometimes you just didn't know what he was meant to be doing almost. But, largely he did impress me, and I feel quite sorry for him now that it's another sort of setback. But I'm sure, he'll be working hard. He's already back at Melwood, isn't he? Undergoing this rehabilitation. So hopefully, we just see him back in the first few weeks of the season, just as though, no time's passed and he hasn't missed anything. Because he's a great option to have, I think, in terms of moving forward. Naby Keita, I think I didn't catch all of the first half. I saw a few glimpses, what you see on social media, his goal. He took that really well. I think was the outside of his boot. Lovely finish. I think it's an important season for him because he can no longer feel like, every season we sort of say, he could be like a new signing. That's kind of over for me now. He just needs to start producing because, we see that sort of world class in him, the abilities there, and then it kind of goes missing, whether it's through an injury, which, is sometimes you can't prevent those things, and then he sort of seems to curtail a little bit his progress. But hopefully, he's just on a steady path now, and I think you'd like to think he's one of the first names on the team sheet when he is fit. I think this could be his sort of, not his breakout season, but this could be the one where it's like, wow, Liverpool have got some player on the hands, because I feel like we all sense that. We need them to stitch a whole season together rather than, little bits and bobs here and there. I just think he needs to, hopefully, touch wood, he's got some good luck in him in terms of not getting any injuries, because that would be obviously a blow. But, moving forward again, he's such a good player to have, isn't he? So fingers crossed that, on the injury front for the whole team, but for them two in particular, it's not as bad for Oxlade-Chamberlain, and then Keita can just have a nice run at this season.
Yeah, and I suppose, Doyle, even tying in the Thiago stuff with this in terms of the midfield, if Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain stayed fit more often than they were injured, which does seem to hinder both players. We probably wouldn't even talk about Liverpool maybe needing a midfield player. Certainly, as Kiva said there, the potential and the glimpses of quality that Naby Keita, for one, does show when he is able to get a run together.
Well, I think the only reason they're talking about Thiago is because the whole debate over Wijnaldum. If Wijnaldum had signed a new contract about 6 months ago, I don't think anybody would even be talking about signing him. So I think there's that. I mean, obviously they lost Lallana, but Curtis Jones is seen as the natural replacement for him. They don't want to hinder his progress, so they're not going to bring somebody in for the sake of it, which is why they won't spend a massive amount of money on a player they don't necessarily need. In terms of Keita, I think I don't think he's, in the sense, the bigger sense, I don't think he's got anything to prove now. I think, he played 9 games, more or less, when we came back to the end of last season. And he was Liverpool's best player by miles in that. Now, he was doing all the things that you'd expect him to do. Whether or not it helped that he didn't have the crowd there, added a little bit of pressure, I don't know. But it's not just him. There's an awful lot of teams who are in that same situation, individual players who seem to benefit from, not having that pressure on them. But he's kind of producing the form, or he has been producing the form that's why Liverpool spent an awful lot of money for him. I don't think there's any questions now about whether he can do it. I think the question now is just making sure, as Kiva said, making sure he's fit. In terms of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, I wrote something on him a couple of months ago now, actually, that I was amazed by how many times he's played last season. He played, because he's not got a settled position. He's played, he played on the left wing, didn't he, in a couple of games. Certainly played against Chelsea in the Super Cup, wasn't great. But then he scored from there at Bournemouth. He's come on and played on the right. He played in the number 9 role against Genk, wasn't it, in the Champions League as the false 9. And obviously he's played in central midfield as well. So he's played in all of the positions. He's so versatile. I think that's why Klopp, wanted him in the first place. And in terms of him, again, it's the injury thing, isn't it? He does tend to get these little, these little problems. He had the big one, obviously, with the knee problem, which ruled him out for best. It was 12 months, wasn't it? But since then, he's featured in so many squads, and he's the kind of player that you need if you're going to win stuff. And funnily enough, he was in the squad last season, played a load of games, and Liverpool won the league. What a surprise! So, that's the kind of job that he'll be expected to do again next season. I don't think them signing Thiago, if they sign Thiago, if they decide to make a move for him, if Wijnaldum goes, we're doing this again. But if somebody new arrives, I don't think it's going to compromise the jobs of either Keita or Oxlade-Chamberlain, because any new arrival will only be to replace somebody who's leaving.
No, fair point on that. And yeah, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think it was only the front three actually scored more goals in all competitions for Liverpool last season than him. So that is certainly something he does bring to the squad. Well, final point on the pre-season game against Stuttgart, and I'll come to you, Matt, on this one. And it's around excitement around a player called Joe Rimmer refers to as Billy Koumetio, who featured, and well, not many fans know too much about him or did know too much about him, but he certainly was impressive.
Yeah, he certainly was. He's one of those who's stepped up from the academy and stepped up into Liverpool training this pre-season. Seems to be, impressing. He's obviously very physically well developed. Still only 17, doesn't turn 18, I don't think, until November. But yeah, he seems to be one that Liverpool have drafted in, and obviously we know Dejan Lovren has moved on this summer, not really being any natural replacement for him brought in. You wonder whether Jurgen Klopp and his backroom team are having a look at a few different options. I think it's probably still a little bit too soon for Billy Koumetio, but certainly lots of Liverpool fans were rightly impressed with him over the weekend. I thought he slotted in really well when he came on. He wasn't on for the full half, was he? Only played about half of that half, replacing, I think, Sepp Vandenberg. But yeah, he's an exciting player. He's been at Liverpool, I think, for about 18 months or so now. I think he came in at the beginning of 2019. Played for Lyon earlier in his career, played as a winger, and I think you could sort of see that a little bit. Obviously, with some of his passing from centre-back, I think he's a really interesting and exciting option for Liverpool going forward. But yeah, all I would say is he's still only 17, so as much as he looks like the finished product physically, there's still a lot of development for him to do.
I can't believe he's taller than Van Dijk, by the way. And he's 17, so he's probably going to keep growing, surely. Madness.
Yeah, 1.95 metres, I think he is, which is not far off the approach, is it?
Yeah, too tall for a winger. He's not really going to be a tricky winger anymore, is he?
No. I think he played as a very young child as a winger, then played as a left back, and Liverpool have converted him to a centre back. So, yeah, certainly one to watch.
No, certainly we'll keep an eye on him. And Kiva, Liverpool step up their preparations for pre-season tomorrow. They play Salzburg, who of course they played in the Champions League last season as well. And it does sort of really hammer home, I suppose, the games with Stuttgart and Red Bull Salzburg so quickly after one another that we're not in a usual pre-season. Of course, last year Liverpool kicked off pre-season playing the likes of Tranmere Rovers and Bradford City as well. Whereas this year, we know, obviously, at the end of this week, it's the Community Shield coming up. We are straight away into the new season.
Yeah, I mean, the mighty Tranmere, that was a great day out for us, wasn't it, Ian? We had a good, day at Prenton Park.
You got your picture of Harvey Elliott?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
It's quite a funny story, that. Should I quickly tell it?
Go on. Yeah.
So Ian spotted Harvey Elliott there, and he hadn't yet signed for Liverpool. So I was like, should I? Because we couldn't get a picture of him, but we were writing the story as though, Harvey Elliott's here. Oh, isn't this exciting? And basically, we couldn't get a picture of him because we were sat behind him. So then after the game, I think it was after the game, wasn't it? He was sort of just like, hanging about. And I just went over and was like, can I get a picture with you? And he was like, yeah, fine, whatever. Got a picture with him. And then I just cropped me out and sent it to the desk. Like, here's a picture of Harvey Elliott. But obviously, I have got that picture framed somewhere. No, I haven't. But yeah, no, that's a little side note story there for you that I don't think I've ever told. So yeah. And what was we? Now I've gone completely
we were talking about just the fact that Liverpool have got Salzburg to come tomorrow, and it's just stepping up preparations in pre-season.
Yeah, I think Salzburg's a great choice. Obviously, it's, Liverpool are in Austria, aren't they? So it makes sense to play them, and obviously it makes sense to play them because they play a similar style to Liverpool. So it's, I think it's important to sort of see how it's going. And I always think, with Jesse Marsh's comments that come out this morning of 5 players he can think of from both clubs that could go to Liverpool, and I was thinking Jürgen might have sort of set this up and he might have his eye on 1 or 2 players. Could be a good way to get a closer look, a little scouting mission perhaps, and obviously it'll test the lads out. We know last season they pushed Liverpool to the limits, didn't they, really, especially in that first game at Anfield. So it's going to be a good test for Liverpool, and I think it'll sort of get them back into that rhythm and routine. As we saw against Stuttgart, they were good opposition, weren't they, and put up a good fight. To only get beat 3-0 by Liverpool is, for some clubs a big thing, I'd say. This Liverpool team in particular. Looking forward to that, and then obviously you've got Arsenal at the weekend, which I think will be less friendly than the Community Shield normally is. I feel like we'll see a similar game to the Man City one. And speaking of Man City, I do feel like testing yourself against Salzburg, who are attacking, and a lot of the ball is similar to how Liverpool's main opposition again next year for the Premier League title will be Man City. So to play a team like Salzburg, who sort of will come at Liverpool in the same way City do, I think will give Klopp a good idea of where he needs to the players he can depend on and things like that. And obviously we know it is a good game for fitness as well.
Yeah, and Doyle, Jesse Marsh, as Kiva alluded to, has been speaking before the game effectively how the styles are similar between Red Bull Salzburg and Liverpool. And I mean, some of his quotes make it seem as though this is going to be half scouting mission, half friendly for Liverpool as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's on about there, to be honest. I couldn't name you 3 of the players from Salzburg. In fact, I could name you 1 of the players from Salzburg who get in the Liverpool team, to be honest. So maybe 1 or 2 Leipzig ones would quite fancy it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the game itself, I actually don't think it's very good preparation for the Arsenal game in terms of you trying to beat Arsenal, because we know what Arsenal are going to do. They're just going to sit back and defend, and Salzburg won't do that. But I almost think these are, as Keith said, these are just fitness games. They just need. There was every chance they might not have even played any games, but in the end they're out there. Salzburg have obviously been approached, and they're receptive to it because they need to play as well. So the Stuttgart game was good exercise. I would imagine that the Salzburg game will be the same in the sense that they'll just play absolutely everybody that's out there. So the first half will be you might see a stronger team, or possibly they might just play them in the second half. I mean, the team that started against Stuttgart, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the team that plays against Arsenal. with, I think Curtis Jones. We know that Trent's not going to play. I'd be amazed if Henderson's playing. He won't. We might see a bit of Henderson possibly on Tuesday. I don't know. But I think that could be the team to play Arsenal. And I think it will just get treated as an extra friendly. It's not like last season where it was against City and it was a chance. I mean, Jurgen Klopp said at the time, he said, I know we got beat by City on penalties, but I watched that game and thought, yeah, we're going to be all right this season, because Liverpool played well against City and they were, the standard. That was the barometer. So they knew they were going to have to beat Liverpool. Outplayed them in the second half. I don't think that's going to be happening against Arsenal. I think it will be a friendly, because don't forget, after that they then don't play for 2 weeks because the international break's coming up. So it seems as though the game on Saturday is a little bit of a box-ticking exercise for me, because they have to do it because they've always done it. And it'll just be treated as a friendly. And I think that's how Liverpool will look at it. I would imagine Arsenal would too.
On that, though, and we'll talk obviously about the Community Shield in more depth on Friday's podcast. But as you said there last season, Jurgen Klopp referring to the Man City game. I remember before the game himself, he was saying in Germany, the German Super Cup, it's a bigger deal than the Community Shield is over here. I know we perhaps maybe look at it more as a friendly, but Jurgen Klopp might not. He might be looking at it as a chance to lay down a marker, even if it is 2 weeks before the season starts.
I think if there'd been fans there and had it been a normal game, it would have been slightly different. I do think that the whole no fans there was a very strange situation. In a normal way, like the City game, Liverpool quite clearly were desperate to win that one and they were gutted afterwards. But I don't know, the Arsenal one, I just genuinely do think it will. It's a case of having a look at players, having a look who's playing well, because he's then going to, Klopp's then going to lose half of his squad to international duty. So it'll be one of the last times he's able to actually see what he wants to be doing going into those first few games in the season.
Yeah, it does seem very strange timing, and as you say, box-ticking exercise. But Matt, final word on the Jesse Marsch stuff. Of course, you caught up with him during lockdown, and during that chat, he was as open as he has been with the comments this time around, talking about players leaving and everything. It's not really sort of what you typically expect of a manager, basically flaunting their players to other clubs.
No, I mean, that's what we said at the time, isn't it? But it is sort of their model, isn't it, to move players from Salzburg to Leipzig and then move on to other places. We've seen that with Hee-Chan Hwang, who impressed against Liverpool last season, now ended up at RB Leipzig under Julian Nagelsmann. So, look, I think it's a well-trodden path. It's a path that certainly Liverpool have kept an eye on in the past. And I think, as we'll see on Tuesday, it's no surprise that is the case, because they do play in a very similar way to Liverpool. So, look, I don't think any of the names who are going to be on the Salzburg team sheet on Tuesday are going to be ready to move to Liverpool this summer and make a big impact. But potentially, a few years down the line, maybe another move and then Liverpool, potentially one or two of those names might be worth keeping a little bit of an eye on. And, you'd imagine that Jesse Marsch at some point will move on, whether that's to Leipzig, whether that's to the Premier League. So, he too is somebody who's very much up and coming, and that, I suppose, is what the Red Bull Salzburg sort of model and their club is all about. It's all about young players. It's all about playing in a particular way and almost accepting that you are a stepping stone, which I don't know how their fans might feel about that. I suppose they are one of the better teams in Austria, so they might not care too much about that. But yeah, very much a stepping stone. And I'm sure there will be players to keep an eye on. And I think it'll just be, for Liverpool, all about fitness, all about getting ready for this new season, I think, as much as anything. So, yeah, certainly one to watch out for.
Yeah, certainly some players to keep an eye on, and keep an eye on the Liverpool Echo website tomorrow, as we do bring you, of course, reaction to that second pre-season friendly against Red Bull Salzburg in Austria. We'll also have a special post-game podcast here on the Blood Red channel. The Blood Red podcast, of course, will be back on Friday to look ahead to the weekend's Community Shield game. But from myself, Guy Clarke, Matt Addison, Keeper O'Neill, and Ian Doyle, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.